So if you've been watching the 119 Bible Bootcamp videos so far, you know that we've talked about tools that we can use to help dig into scripture. Tools like Bible Gateway, YouVersion, Blue Letter Bible. And then we talked about doing things like word studies, topical studies, and doing a chapter and book summary. Now, we could call those methods for studying scripture because they kind of are, but I'm really going to leave them in the category of tools that we can use because they're kind of some of the fundamental study type tools that we can use and apply towards all the other things that we're going to talk about. So again, word study, topical study, and chapter and book summary, those can fall either way. We can call them tools or we can call them study methods. For our purposes, we're going to leave them in that sort of category of tools because they are so fundamental. And you'll find that the things that we learned in using those tools, we're actually going to use for all of the methods of study that we're going to talk about. So this will be the first of the 119 Bible Bootcamp videos where we start talking about actual methods of study. Today, specifically, we're going to talk about the Inductive Bible Study Method. So the Inductive Bible Study Method, it's been around for a really long time. I'm not even sure where it started, but it really just kind of builds on what we've already talked about. The things that we learned through the word study, the topical study, even the chapter and book summary, those things that we learned to do those, it's really what we're going to do in an inductive Bible study method. It's just that this has a formal name. So it's really more of a formal method and it has a name, Inductive Bible Study. So for the Inductive Bible Study Method, we're always looking for the O, the I, and the A. The O is observations, the I is interpretation, and the A is application. And it's going to look really familiar because basically that's what we've been doing so far with the word study, topical study, and chapter and book summary. We've made some observations. Then we look to God to help us make an interpretation of the scripture. And then we ask God, how do we apply this in our lives? So let's talk a little bit more about each one. In the observation, it's much of the same things that we've been looking for. Often when people are teaching the Inductive Bible Study Method, during the observe part, they're going to tell you the 5 W's because it's a really good way for you to remember what you're looking for, what things you want to observe. So those 5 W's are who, what, when, where, and why. So let's just take a look at some of those. The first W is the who. So here are the observations that we're looking for. Who wrote this? Who were they writing to? Who were they writing about? Who was mentioned in the text? That's the who. Then the next thing is the what. What is happening in this passage? What is the author trying to tell us? And what is the context for this passage? In other words, what happened before and after? What is the cultural context for this passage? The geography, the different characters, like all the things. What is the context? What's happening all around this passage that helps us to understand what's going on here? The next W is when. When was this passage written? And we don't always get exact dates, but we can get typically some pretty good ideas through, again, just like we did for the chapter summary last video where we looked at timelines. That's one place to look, and very often the author will give you some clues in the year of, during the feasts of, during the reign of. So those are going to be clues to help you understand the when as to when the passage was written. Other whens are going to be when will events happen. Sometimes God will say, when this happens, I will do this. When you see this happen, look for this. So we're looking for terms like therefore, until, when, after, and again in the year of, during the reign of, or in the feasts of. That's the when. The next W is the where. Where was the author when he was writing this text? Where are the people that he's writing to or about? Where are the events going to happen? And then the why. Why is the author saying this? Why did God use this person to write this passage of scripture? And why are these events happening? What caused this to happen? Why is God choosing to do this during this time? So after we make our observations, we're going to attempt to make some interpretations. In the interpretation part of the study, context is key. Interpretation is just asking God, what does this passage mean? So when we're ready to start asking God to explain what the passage means, to give us an interpretation, we're always going to measure our understanding of this passage as it fits in the context of the scriptures around what we're reading, as well as how our understanding fits in the context of the whole Bible. And we're going to be looking to see whether our understanding is consistent with God's nature and God's character. Because if our interpretation or understanding of the scripture doesn't line up with any of those, then we need to go back and ask God again for a clearer understanding. Because if it doesn't fit with God's nature and character, and if it doesn't fit in with the context of the rest of the Bible, there's probably some errors in our understanding, and we just need to go back and ask Him to help us find the errors and find out why it's not lining up, so that we can then ask Him for more understanding and to help us get a clearer interpretation of the passage. So after we make our observations and then start looking for some interpretation or understanding of the passage, then we're going to look for applications. So what does God want me to know from this passage, and what does He want me to do with what I've learned? So again, all of this should sound pretty familiar if you've been going through the 119 Bible Bootcamp videos up to this point, because we're always just making observations, trying to understand what's happening within the scripture. Then we're asking God to help us understand it, make some interpretation, and then the application. We're asking Him always, now that I've read this and you've given me understanding, what do you want me to do with what I've learned? So the resource that goes along with today's video, it's 2 pages. The first page really kind of just recaps what we've just talked about, and then the second page is to help guide you through actually putting that into practice. And I'm not actually going to go through that with you because, again, it should be really familiar by now. And if you haven't already seen the other videos prior to this one, the word study, the topical study, the chapter and book summary method, just go back into those, because I'll actually show you step by step what that looks like. And if you want this resource or any of the resources that go along with the 119 Bible Bootcamp, you'll find the link down below in the description. But while the Bible Bootcamp is live, those emails that have the video links and the resources in them will go out every Sunday afternoon. You'll also find down in the description the links to all our socials. So Instagram, if you're an Instagrammer, Facebook page, and then our Facebook group, which is where so much of our interaction happens. That's where we get to actually practice these things together and talk about our devotional life and our Bible study and all of those things. So that happens over in our Facebook group. All of those are free, no pressure to join or follow or like or any of the things, but that's what's available to you. So in the next video, we're going to talk about Bible journaling, and for that video, we're actually going to bring my favorite Bible journaling friend over, Mandy from Move the Mountains, and she's going to talk to us about Bible journaling because she is the pro. So we'll see you in the next video.